Hello, everybody. I am Julia from Little Metal Foxes, and Jennifer is out of town tonight. She's actually flying home from visiting her family. She said she had a wonderful week, and we're looking forward to having her back. But as a result of that, I'm on deck for Tooltip Tuesday today. So what I decided I wanted to do, since I was on my own, didn't have my trusty friend with me, was to talk about making a spring for these pliers. So last week, Jennifer came over and hung out with me, and she helped me put this leather on the jaws of these parallel jaw pliers. These had urethane in them, and the urethane had dried out and gotten crunchy, and so I wasn't really able to use them. So we peeled that off, and then we used carpet tape and some leather, suede, that Jennifer brought, and put new jaws on here. But one of the things I really like, because I'm a chain maker, is to have springs in my pliers. I really prefer springs in my pliers. So, oh, and I want to say, because I'm by myself, I can't really monitor the chat, so I can't see if you guys are putting anything in the chat. So I apologize if I'm leaving anybody out, but I can't see it. So don't put anything in the chat. It's mission critical. Anyway, I like to have springs in my pliers because I'm a chain maker. So I like the pliers to return on their own open space so that I can pick up the next ring. So the pliers, I have one pair of parallel jaw pliers that had a spring in it and it broke. And so I had made some springs out of just wire, coat hanger wire. And that worked okay, but it wasn't, it's pretty heavy wire, and it wasn't quite springy enough. So I decided I would see if I could do something else. So this spring that's in here is a new spring that I made out of some music wire. So this is just plain old music wire from my local Ace Hardware. It comes in 3-foot length. It comes in a package of 3 pieces, and this size stock, this is stock number 503. It's 1.4 millimeters in diameter, or 0.055 inches in diameter music wire. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I made this spring, because I've learned a couple of things along the way. So one of the things I learned is that if you make this center hole too big, the spring won't be springy enough. You want to make the center coil on the smaller side. So what I'm actually going to use to wrap my wire around is a transfer punch. So I love these. I have this set of transfer punches that I use as mandrels for my chain making. So what I'm going to use for this is the number 3/8 transfer punch for making the center part. And then I have a couple of vice grips, right, locking pliers that I'm going to use as well. And in addition to that, to cut music wire, you can't cut it. It's too hard to cut it with regular side cutters. So I'm going to use a separating disc on my flex shaft to cut it. And you definitely want to wear safety glasses if you're doing that. So, but before we get to that point, we have to bend it. So let me get my handy dandy camera on here so you can see what we are doing. I'll go over here and share my screen. All right. Let's hide the floating meeting controls. All righty. Okay, so here we go. Now we can kind of see the edge of the table. And this is my vise. We'll move it out a little more so you can see it a little better. Okay, so I have just a regular bench vise, right? And then caught, oops, let me get this set up here. Okay, so I have a regular bench vise, and then I love these vise jaws, which have channels in them that go both directions, right? So they do a really good job. These are really inexpensive. I think I got them at Tool Town years ago, but I've gotten them from Amazon as well. And the nice thing about these is they allow me to hold this transfer punch perfectly vertically, right? So it's not going to wobble, because this was actually really important. As I'm wrapping this wire around, I have this relatively short piece of wire that I'm going to use. I think it's only about 10 inches, but I think it's going to be long enough. So the first thing I want to do is clamp, going to clip on a vice grip to, now when I did this with the really long piece, I couldn't clamp the vice grip to the end, to both ends, but with the shorter piece, I think I can do it just fine. With the longer piece, I just used it with my hand. All right, so one of the first things that I figured out is that this stuff is really stiff. It's really hard. So it's hard to bend it. So the first thing I want to do is kind of roughly, you can see the length. Show you these. These were two of the springs that I did. This one, the leg was a little bit longer than this one, and I discovered that the shorter leg is actually better. So this one, you can see, you pull it out, you can see the basic shape of it. This is the basic shape of the spring. These are called torsion springs. They're the same kind of spring you would find in like a chip clip or a hair clip. So I need my leg to be, you know, like only a couple of inches long. So and then you can see on these, I actually did 3 rounds. I went around 3 times. And what happens when you do go around 3 times is it'll tend to kind of open up a little bit like this. So I'm actually going to give this particular one a try with only 2 rounds around. So the first thing I got to do is hold it. And I've got this roughly 2 inches or so from here. Hold on, let me get my focus a little tighter. There we go. So I can always cut this end off a little bit if I need to make it shorter. I can't make it any longer. So I want to make sure that I give myself enough room. And then I'm just going to pull these guys in and start wrapping this around. Now, what I did find is that it's easier if you wrap under to hold things kind of more flat, right? Like so. And then I got to get this here. This is a little tricky to do with only 2 hands. Oops, I think there we go. Let's tighten that up a little bit. All right, and then I got to come under here again. And come around. Now what I want is for it to come all the way back so when I let go of it, you can see it's actually got a bit of an angle. And I don't want it to have an angle like that. I want it to have an angle like this. So I'm going to need to pull it a little more. Change hands. There we go. I need to pull it around a little further, pull it a little tighter so that when I relax it, it has an angle. They're angled up toward each other. The stuff is pretty stiff. Okay, so there you go. You can see when I let go of it, I take it out of the clamps, I have a bend in it, right? And this is opened up a little bit, but I think we can get it to work. Bend it back a little like so. Okay, all right, so that's the first part. Then I need to cut off this part here. Let me get back in here a little bit, move this. All right, so now I'm going to cut this off. So I need to figure out how long this bit is. This bit ends up being about 1.75 inches from the middle there. So it's going to be about to there. What I found was that it didn't have to be super, super precise, but, you know, you want to be in the ballpark. All right, so that's what I'm looking at, is cutting this off roughly right there. Yeah, there's a little mark there. Okay, so let me grab this, put on my safety glasses. Love these safety glasses, by the way. I don't know if you can see it. These are bifocal safety glasses. They have a 2x reader in the bottom part. Love them. They make my life so much easier because I can actually see what I'm doing. Big help. All right, get my foot pedal over here. And turn this on. Okay, so I'm just going to do this against the edge of the table. I do have a bench pin, but I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm just going to do it like this. So we're going to do this. You see a few sparks coming off. And it will get warm. I'm going to just snap that out so it doesn't go flying. And then I will actually gently press, because you can see, I think you can see on here that there's a bit of a sharp end where it's broken off. And I don't want, because I have to bend this a little bit to put it into my pliers, I don't want that sharp end. So I'm actually going to very gently press it this way into the separating disc to grind off that edge. Now I don't want to push too hard, because if I push too hard, I'll snap the separating disc and pieces of the separating disc can go flying, which is why I'm wearing the safety glasses. All right, so we're just going to smooth this off a little bit. Just get the sharpness off of there. All right. Okay, so that is that. And then turn your flex shaft off. Now, the other thing I need in here is to keep it from slipping out of the housing on the pliers itself. So I need to put a little bit of a kick, a little bend in the end of these. And what I'm going to use to do that is a pair of parallel jaw pliers. So I'm going to grab onto it like this and just bend it like so. And you can see it's pretty hard stuff. So bend it like that, straighten it out a little bit. And then I'm going to grab this end and just bend a little kick on this. And I want these, you know, the little kicks to be along the same axis as the legs, like so. There we go. Okay, so there it is. There's my torsion spring. So this is the one that came out of these. And this one was a little bit long. I think this is right. Yeah, this one's a little bit long. So then you just hook it in there and do that. But this one still works. Now this is the other pair. You can see I have a flat nose pair, and then I have a half round and flat pair. So this is the one that this is going to go in. So we just bend it, pop that in there, and there you go. Boom. That's all it takes. It's not super pretty, but 3 strands of this music wire. So this came in a group of 3 chunks, right? Here's the tag on it. Turn it around so you can see it. So 3 strands of this 0.055 inch or 1.4 millimeter music wire was like $2.50, right? And they are 3-foot pieces. So you get quite a lot of springs out of 3 feet. Yes. So that's actually, 9 feet of music wire. I was able to make a spring out of about 10 inches, right? So you've got 1 36-inch piece is going to give you at least 3 springs, depending on how long the spring is. I actually cut off a chunk. So I had a 10-inch chunk and I have a leftover piece. It would be difficult to make it exactly the right length, but I have a piece about 3 inches long. So the spring that I just made for this pair of pliers actually only took about 7 inches of wire. So really a 3-foot section of music wire, you should be able to get, 5 or 6 almost pairs of springs out of them. So having the legs be on the shorter side and having the hole in the center, having the mandrel that you're wrapping it around be fairly small were actually 2 things that I found were key to having the springs really return well, right? That when I went with a larger center mandrel, then the spring was softer. So if you're finding that this is too strong, right? This is like pushing too hard on your hand, use a bigger transfer punch. Make a spring that's, you know, around, because when the first one I did it around, I don't know, one of these, it was like half an inch or something. It's like, that was definitely too big. It was too soft. And then this one also is only two rounds. It's only went around twice, as opposed to this one, which went around 3 times. I don't think going around 3 times really improved things, and it uses up another chunk of wire. So there you go. Even if they don't last that long, given that the wire was so inexpensive and it was so easy to do this, when you have a really long piece of wire, you could hold one end with a pair of pliers or vice grips, and you just wrap it with the really long piece. Where you really need 2 pairs of pliers or vice grips is when it gets a little shorter, because it's just really springy, and you do have to be careful of that, because if it springs back when you're not paying attention, it can cut you. So don't cut yourself. All right. That was it. That was all I wanted to show you guys. Super sweet and fast. And I'm super happy that, you know, my pliers have a return on them, because I like my pliers to pop back when I'm using them. Okay, so I already talked about this a little bit on Instagram Live, but we do have some new classes coming up in August. Jennifer has a bee in her bonnet, I think as a result of people asking questions about this, for a series on mechanisms. And I know you guys have asked about bales and things, but we're going to gradually roll out a whole series on mechanisms. So the first couple of those are coming up. Jennifer's doing one a little later in the month on ball joints and universal movements, or universal joints, universal mechanisms. And then I'm doing one on sister hooks and swivel clasps. So I have my little sister hook here. Here's my little sister hook. So I'm going to talk about how you build those, you know, what the appropriate thicknesses of the metals are, and, you know, kind of some design considerations. And then I'm also going to talk about doing the lids for swivel blockets, and what are design considerations for this kind of single hinge point, basically, you know. And we're going to talk about a number of things that have to do with putting a lid on a box that just swivels open. So, you know, we might even get into talking about these little figure 8 closures. We'll see if we have time. So we're doing that. And then the other thing I'm doing this coming Saturday, we moved it from last Saturday because I was sick. I have COVID and I'm getting better. But last Saturday, I was really not up to teaching. So we moved the Orca Torch class from last Saturday to this coming Saturday. You can hear in my voice, I still have a little bit of something going on. So I'm going to talk about how to set up your Orca Torch, how to test it, how to put it all together, and how to test it for leaks, and then how to adjust the flame and whatnot. The Orca Torch, or Easy Torch, also called the whale torch, is one of the torches that I use the most in my studio. So I like it, and I use it a lot, and I find it very versatile, and you know, it's a very affordable torch. It's a good first torch. And it's also a good torch for people who are living in apartments or places where they have, like, you know, renters or homeowners insurance, and you're not allowed to have large bottles of compressed gases. And with, really no homeowners insurance, unless you get a rider, it's going to allow you to have large bottles of compressed gases. So the torch I use works with the disposable size propane tanks, the little ones, right? They're, you know, like the Coleman stove size, right? And those are permitted to have inside the house. So it's a safe torch to use inside a house without having, you know, the big tanks of gas and whatnot. So I like it a lot. So we're going to talk about sort of what all the things are you can do with that. Okay, so I think that's enough for me for Tooltip Tuesday today. So if you guys have any questions, you can always email us at info@littlemetalfoxes.com. And otherwise, we'll see you next week on Tooltip Tuesday. Thanks a bunch.